Hey everybody, welcome into Going Public. I am Harry McCullough. We're joined this week by Nicholas Mathern, of course, the general manager of South Lafourche Levee District. So appreciate you being here, man.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So look, we're done hurricane season, right? So
right.
For the most part, I know it goes till November, but we had this big high that sat over us all year long. This El Nino kind of kept the storms away from us, kept a lot of water away from us, which should have meant good news for you guys. Plenty of time to do a lot of work and get a lot of stuff built.
It has been. It's been kind of a blessing and a curse because it's great weather for doing levee work. You know, the dirt's always dry, and so we get a lot of material moving. But on the flip side, you know, we do manage the drainage canals in the South Lafourche area.
Oh, yeah.
And so with no rain almost, you know, all summer, it's been something we've been constantly having to monitor because, you know, I know we've talked about it here before that a lot of people don't realize the importance of actually keeping water in the canals, that it provides some stability for the base of the levee. We also, on the east side of our system in Golden Meadow, have a siphon system right next to pump station number 4, where if we can help control the water levels in Bayou Lafourche, because if the water in Bayou Lafourche gets above 0.4 feet in elevation, we start seeing water on the roads in Golden Meadow. So we're playing a game of inches. And so that siphon allows us to reduce the water level in Bayou Lafourche about a half a foot over 24 hours. But if the water level in the canals gets below the top of the siphon, then the siphon system doesn't work. So we have to make sure that we're constantly monitoring that. So blessing and a curse with, you know, obviously, hey, first hurricane season through in the seat as a general manager, I have no complaints that we didn't have any big storms. And like you said, that it's about a month left of hurricane season now, but that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Because
Hurricane Juan came in November 5th or something. So,
right.
yeah.
I mean, even as recently as 2020, Hurricane Eta that killed 165 people in Nicaragua. So and that was a Category 4 in beginning of November. So. We do have Hurricane Tammy out there, but it looks like she's going to stay in the middle of Atlantic and fizzle out. So
those people in Atlantic caught a lot of hurricanes this year, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. Which, you know, hey, they can have their turn. Let it stay out there.
Those fish caught a lot of hurricanes this year. But yeah, you're not the first one though to talk about construction projects that were able to really make a lot of ground up this summer. You know, like I say, as hot as it was, a lot of people, you know, we lost a lot of grass and that kind of stuff. But it really was, it did help construction anyway this summer.
Right. We've got a lot of activity going on in South Lafourche right now. I know one thing I do love to show when I come on here is to remind everyone how much land we lost on the outside of our system overnight for Hurricane Ida.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've got some satellite imagery here that shows us from before Hurricane Ida. This is December 2020, and we're looking on the east side of our system.
Yeah, it wasn't like we were flush then either.
Right. No, I mean, it's been getting worse and worse. I mean, everybody who's grown up around here has seen land disappear over our lifetimes. But from December 2020 to post-Ida, the next image, you know, you see it's estimated about 20 years of land loss that we experienced overnight with this hurricane. So that's a huge deficit to come back from. But we're doing what we can in terms of expanding our protection within the system, and then partnering with the parish and the state to hopefully rebuild some of that marsh in the coming years.
Will stuff regrow though? I mean, can we?
We can.
Like in a summer like this, will stuff like that regrow?
And while a lot of that looks like it's a terrible situation, which it is, we lost a lot of marsh, but it's still very shallow in a lot of the areas. So it wasn't like it blew it out and now we have 6 feet of water. Right. We have inches of water. So starting from there isn't as bad of a point to be starting from when we're looking at doing more coastal restoration projects in the coming years.
Because anybody that cuts grass knows how fast stuff can grow.
Absolutely. Right.
and then, you know, that part where you're talking, when they start doing those diversions out of New Orleans, out of the Barataria, that'll eventually head your ways.
Sure. Coming off of the Mississippi River, and we've been working locally actually between the South Lafourche Levee District, Terrebonne Levee District, North Lafourche Levee District, Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes, and the Bayou Lafourche Freshwater District. We've developed kind of a consortium working group that over the next couple decades, even as some of these projects come online, like the reintroduction of Bayou Lafourche from the Mississippi River in Donaldsonville, where we've been seeing only about 500,000 cubic feet per second being pumped from the river into the bayou. When that project's done, we'll have up to 2,000 cubic feet per second. We'll be able to send down, which once we know that we can handle that water, now we can start to be proactive and say, well, what good can we do with that water? And so your thinking is exactly right. When we have the skeleton, basically, of the marsh, we can use these freshwater enhancements and sediment diversions to put meat on those bones, and really do a lot of good moving forward with coastal restoration.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I interrupted your presentation, but so where from that? So let's talk about what you guys have been working on.
Well, so on the northern end in LaRose, we've been working on section C North, which is, we've got it on the next photo. So section C North runs from about the Berg-LaRose Highway to the Côte Blanche connection and cutoff, and we actually put together a little update video that we posted on Facebook to show some of that progress that we've been making. So this project it's about a 3-mile long project where we're elevating that levee from about 8 feet to 13 feet. This is a combination of our own local South Fish Levee District employees working hand in hand with local contractors. We're nearly done with this project and got maybe about 2 months left of work, but we've taken material from the Barrow Canal just on the inside of this levee, dug it out, dried it out, and then shaped it into the levee.
And when you're not trucking, you don't have the expense of trucking in dirt. And all
right,
that.
And that's what's allowed us in South Lafourche to be so successful over the decades, that when the Corps of Engineers builds their levees, the first thing they do is try to identify where they're going to go get the dirt from. Mm-hmm. And they go out and identify a pit and do geotechnical investigation, check the organics, the moisture content. And once they identify this area, then that landowner is basically King Midas, and just name their own price. Right. And so it drives the cost up, not to mention just the cost of the dirt, but to transport it. Right. Dirt is very cheap, but when you have to put it in a truck and move it several miles away, that's what really skyrockets your costs very quickly. So us being able to dig material out of our borrow pit and dry it and process it, while it might not be the solid gold version of dirt that the Corps likes to use, obviously we've done something right, because where the Corps' calculations say that we shouldn't be able to stand up to a 10-year level storm, we've proven against a 300-year level storm. So while we're not following their guidance to the letter, where we don't have a bad system, and we've proven that we can construct stuff
and it's up.
Absolutely. So moving south from there, from C South, or going to section C South, we've elevated that section of levee from about a 14-foot elevation to closer to plus 18 feet. This project is complete, done. We've grassed it, or seeded it rather, and so the grass is definitely starting to take very well. We'd imagine that section would settle down from the 18 down to about a 16-foot elevation, which is what we've targeted for this area. So in Ida, we saw about 13-foot storm surge in this area. So 16 feet, we're very comfortable with moving forward. On the opposite side of our system, on the east side, behind South Lafourche High School, down to the Leonard J. Miller Airport, on section D North, another photo that we have, that's about a half-mile worth of work that we've done here to elevate this section to 16 feet. And this is a smaller project compared to what some of the other 3-4 mile projects that we do. But this was a very critical piece that we realized during Hurricane Ida. We had some overtopping here, and so not a lot of standing water, mostly debris, but still was definitely an area we knew we needed to come in and target. So we've lifted this about half-mile section to about a plus 16. And so this image that we're looking at here, this is a drone looking towards the northeast. And so you can tell that when the water comes in from the southeast here, that angle leads to a lot of stacking. And so having those corners, those sharp angles a little higher than the rest of the levee definitely helps as we move forward. So then a little further north there along section E North, so this is between Clovelly Farms and Little Lakes, about East 26th to East 44th Street. in the LaRose cutoff area. So this is a 2-mile stretch that we're working on right now. We did see some overtopping in this area too, but what we're doing right now is we have a contractor that's digging from a very close by pit on the same property and stockpiling the material along this 2-mile stretch. And then as they stockpile it and it dries, our levee district personnel are we've got an excavator and a dozer there that are pulling it up and shaping it into a higher levee section that we're targeting another 16 feet here. And so that's all happening now. We do have some other projects that are in the hopper that we're excited to get started in the near future. But we've done a lot since Hurricane Ida to identify the places where we saw we had weaknesses and always keep improving, always getting higher.
And look, that's what these events are about, right? Is to figure out exactly where you're at. And you don't know when you're going to have a turn like, oh, wait, we didn't anticipate that everything was going to come right here. Right. And I guess every storm's going to be a little different, right, as to where it all builds. But, yeah, you can find your weak spots and then improve them on the off years, right?
Right. So that's what we've tried to tackle, the priority areas, and then we'll be able to not be so much in firehouse mode, as I've called it. But
you got some other stuff, and we're going to take our first break. But when we take a look at, there's a plug behind South Lafourche High School right there that's going to open up some canals and those types of things. Those are all things that you're trying to do to make sure that water moves slow. Water's supposed to find its own level, right?
Right.
Sometimes you got to make it find its right level. I guess, are we moving up the bayou or down the bayou?
Well, all over, because we're very proud of the work that we have going on right now, but we've got a lot of exciting projects that we're looking forward to getting started within the next couple weeks and then in years. And so over in LaRose on the east side, around the Delta Farm community, we have our levees divided into sections based on the 1965 Corps of Engineers study. And so Section F runs from the Delta Farms Road area all the way down to about East 35th Street. And so that's about a 4.5-mile stretch where a little bit different. Most people are used to seeing us elevate the levee. Well, you can build a levee higher and higher, but eventually anybody who's built a tower out of blocks knows that if you don't have a good solid base to support that tower, eventually it's going to crumble. So what we're going back and doing along Section F for this stretch is we're going to improve what we call the flood-side berm. And so as the levee slope tapers off and it gets to more ground elevation level, then the slope isn't as steep, and that's what that dirt there provides the strength for the bottom. I think of it as if someone's trying to push open a door and you put your toe at the bottom of the door to put some force to stop them from opening. You don't have to push on the top if you've got enough strength at the bottom. And so that's kind of how that berm acts, is that strength at the bottom of the levee to keep it up. And so a lot of the berm here along this section that we're targeting is 4 or 5 feet below sea level. And so we've got a pretty sizable grant of money from the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority of Louisiana to elevate that berm up to sea level. So the levee section itself is in really great shape. It looks great, good elevation, and this is just going to add some stability there.
For every time you go up, you need to go wide too, right?
Right.
Unless you have a T-wall, but they're not doing that.
Right. But yeah, as we move up, we maintain a certain slope, and then as we get higher and higher, obviously you need to build out further to support that elevation.
So that's what you're doing in Delta Farm.
So that's what we're doing around Delta Farm. So it's going to be kind of one of our first berm projects that we've done in a while, just strictly focusing on the strength of the berm itself instead of only focusing on the height of the levee. But what we've seen after Ida, we've targeted pretty much all of the areas that we saw overtopping. So we're able to show more interest and prioritize more some of these projects that are going to strengthen the great levees that we already have in place.
Hey, look, I know they chain the weakest link and all, but all it takes is one, London Avenue Canal or one 17th Avenue Canal to have one spot that causes the whole thing to be catastrophic. So yeah, you got to fill that all up.
Absolutely. And so every year around January we do a centerline drone survey of our whole levee. And that lets us know where we are now, and we compare that to where we were the year before. We put it up against what our design elevations were meant to be from the Corps. We put it up against the worst storm of record, how high the water got. So for us now, it's Ida that we kind of compare all the elevations to. And
that's the highest one on record?
In recent times, for sure. But in that survey rather helps inform what our priorities are going into that year and future years. So the Section F berm is one that we have going on right now. And then all the way on the south end, Section A kind of makes a U around Golden Meadow. And so that's the next image that we've got. Yeah. A West is obviously on the west side, East is on the east side. So for A West, that's a 3-mile stretch that we're going to be working on to elevate that from the around 16 feet that it currently is. We're going to construct it to 19.5 feet, eventually seeing that probably settling down to about 18 feet. And the same thing for the 4-mile stretch on A East, and that runs from pump station number 4 all the way down to the Leontario Lock there at the bottom of the system in Golden Meadow.
And that's going to be 19 feet as well?
That'll be, right, both sides going up to 19.5 feet.
How long does it take for it to go down a foot like that?
Several years. I mean, you'll see some immediate subsidence or compaction, we call it, as the material that you put up dries a little more and settles in place. But so you see that initial surge of reduction in that height, and then over time just tapers off. And then so that's all that we have to protect the outside from flooding. But as you kind of mentioned before the break, we still have to work on the inside too. And so one of the projects that we're working on right now is to reconnect Breton Canal, which is immediately south of Southwest High School. So for the students that park in that parking lot on the south side, it's right on the other side of the fence. That canal historically connected to Bayou Lafourche, and then years back to prevent flooding to the neighborhoods in the back, that was an earthen plug was put in. So there's no connection right now between Breton Canal and Bayou Lafourche. Because we're playing a game of inches in Golden Meadow, like we mentioned with the siphon in Golden Meadow near pump station number 4, that allows us to reduce the bayou water level 1/2 foot in 24 hours. We're looking to replace that earthen plug in Breton Canal with a weir structure that we can control the height of, and that'll give us up to another 1/2 foot of control over a 24-hour period.
All right. So we had pictures of that, right?
We do. So I've got a little video showing that area there, where we have the earthen plug that's going to be removed right there, that goes under a little bridge connecting to the bayou.
Anybody knows South Lafourche knows exactly where that's
right.
at, right?
And so that's the earthen plug there we're going to be removing. And then our personnel using excavators and dozers owned by the Levy District, we've started clearing out all the vegetation on the north side of the canal so that we can actually access.
How deep will that canal be?
The bottom of the canal we're targeting at a -10, which sounds like a lot, but
move a lot of water.
We've got a staff gauge set up in the canal right now to kind of monitor. And earlier, 2 days ago,
-10 from where the canal is?
Well, -10 feet in elevation. So the canal water right now is already at it was in -8.2. So less than 2 feet we're going to have to dig down. So, everything down there is under sea level so much it proves how critical the system is.
But to be able to control that water and to let it in or out, whichever way. And as you were saying, the siphon doesn't work if it gets too low, right?
Right. And so we have our first line of defense, obviously, is the Leontario Lock in Golden Meadow. The floodgates that we have, the lock in Golden Meadow and the Ted Gisclair floodgate in La Rose, were originally designed to only be closed when there was a storm threatening our area in the Gulf. But over time, because of what we call relative sea level rise, which is a combination of subsidence and sea level rise, we've seen that relation between the land and the water, getting to be more.
Are we talking inches or feet?
We're talking inches, really.
Yeah. Okay. But still, that's not that long.
No, because like we said, if we're looking at sea level versus a little bit above sea level, with the water as our inside is sinking below sea level. If the water gets above 0.4 feet in by Lafourche in Golden Meadow, we have water on the road. Right. And so it's critical that we have that lock in Golden Meadow continuing to operate, but to keep that water from getting inside the South Lafourche area in by Lafourche, but so that we can keep commerce going up and down between Intracoastal and Port Fourchon. The weak link there in that whole system has been the Ted Gisclair floodgate in Larose, because all it is one gate. It's either open or closed, and when we have to have it closed, it's about every 6 hours that we can actually open it. So boats have to wait there until we can safely manage the amount of water coming in. But literally just yesterday, we got our permit in from the Corps of Engineers to convert the floodgate in Larose into a lock system. The exact same thing we did in Golden Meadow. We had a floodgate in Golden Meadow. We added another floodgate immediately north of it and created our own lock complex. We're going to do the exact same thing in Larose. And so that's going to allow us to never have to stop vessels from coming in and always be able to manage that water inside the system. And so between those two locks, the siphon and this weir, we're going to have serious control over the inside of the system, not just the outside.
To do the math.
Improving. Right.
So you make sure you learn your math when you go to school. But what an awesome way to control things, right?
Absolutely.
And then you can keep the fresh water right and all those different things. Yeah.
So we're at a point, we've got a system that we're very proud of. We have a lot of great work that we're addressing, weaknesses that we saw in Ida. We've got exciting things to be able to control the water level inside. To me, the next biggest hurdle is what you and I were talking about before the taping, that we're not accredited by the Corps of Engineers. We're not certified. We're not in the Corps' rehabilitation and inspection program, and we haven't been since 2011. Largely because we decided back then we weren't going to wait on the Corps.
We're going to wait, right?
That we needed flood protection much faster than they were willing to move, and much more cost effective than they were willing to build it. And so we haven't been in that program. I think now we're at a point where we've got a good base and a good argument to sell to the federal government to say, when the Corps goes out to build a levee, if they go out to build it in a marshy area, the footprint of that levee is going to have to be very wide, kind of like we were talking about. The higher you build a tower, the better your base needs to be. Well, the worse material you're building on, the wider your base needs to be. Well, if that levee eventually crosses a natural ridge, the footprint of that levee can be a lot smaller because the soil is so much better. In our case, the Corps doesn't want to call what we have levees because it doesn't meet their criteria. I don't care what you call it. You don't want to call it a levee, call it a ridge, call it a hill. I don't care. It's better than marsh.
Right.
So look at our system, study our system as a starting point. Come back and tell me, if you were to come along my alignment and say, we're going to build a levee here, what would your levee look like? And if we're beyond it, then there's no reason you should be keeping us from your program.
Yeah, no doubt at all. So, all right. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Harry.
That's Going Public. We'll see you next time.